Untitled newspaper is with the editor Richard Butt, and not just a review of the week, but I gave you the challenge of a review of the decade. I mean, by the way, do you think the decade does end, or is it one of those really ambiguous things?
It is ambiguous, isn't it? Because I suppose it should end at the end of 2020. But
I know how you are for things that are very precise.
Exactly.
Okay, well, we'll take it that it's the end of the decade. Isle of Man things. You got a bit of a list.
It's very hard to remember everything that happened and any detail as well, which is weird because it's a long time ago, 10 years ago.
I kind of gave you the brief, like what's you in your way would sell most newspapers, whatever, but obviously things change. But it's really just perceptions. And I came up with the reciprocal health agreement. Yeah. You take that as one of the big ones.
Yes, it was 2010, wasn't it? So that is some time ago. And it is hard to remember how significant or dangerous that might have been for us, in that we could have lost the deal with the UK, so we'd be paying a lot of money if we fell in the UK, etc., and vice versa, people coming over here, whether they'd been in trouble coming here, and that would be a disincentive to come. So it was a big deal at the time, and luckily we came through it eventually, but that did affect,
didn't it?
Yeah. That was one of the big things of the Tony Brown administration. It's so long ago, you think about that.
And he held his hands up. I mean, we got on tape saying there's nothing we can do. It's all over. But the pressure was still on. In fact, it came from the rank and file, didn't it? It came from the old comrades and the war veterans, that sort of thing.
And eventually it worked out fine. Well, better. So, it was a strong thing at the time, and I think that sold a lot of papers and got a lot of people interested.
Okay, over to you. What's on your list?
Well, we've talked about a few things, sort of themes and so on, but also I think one of the most, a couple of things really sort of stand out. The Equality Act, which is eventually coming in full force on New Year's Day.
Been a bit kicking and screaming, hasn't it?
So the disability one, I think, went back to the decade before, never really came in force. But then you've got equality for grounds of sexual orientation, gender, race, disability, or various things, overall that sort of all sorts of areas in life. And so we're actually coming up, and quite a big change. So that took a long time to come through. There was a few hurdles on the way, but now we have it, and I think we're the only place in Europe that has equality for asexuals.
That's another box you can tick or whatever you want to. Yeah. The abortion thing, I think, was on your list. I mean, that's it. We talk about all these different things. I mean, that was
big deal.
Interesting how it did seem to almost go through in the end. I mean, no one got that big sort of kickback that was expected, I suppose.
Politically, no, I don't think there was, in Tynwald at least, but they did have a lot of pressure from the anti-reform people, and we had a lot of correspondence with them as well, and they kept writing to the paper. So did the people who were in favour of reform as well.
Those graphic photos were particularly difficult for people to deal with, I think.
Yeah, we ran pictures of them protesting, but we didn't have any close-ups of what they were actually showing there. So, I mean, they made their point. It's a free society. They're free to do that, I think. I think there were a lot of people who were very angry about what they did. And ultimately, it didn't really change the debate in Tynwald.
Mm-hmm. Now, over the 10 years, at least, it's been moving at such a pace as social media. How's that affected you guys who are still traditional? But, I mean, you put it down in the water, you do your podcast, you do videos, and that sort of thing. I mean, the world and the way it's going is changing beyond all recognition, isn't it?
The fact that Facebook in particular, but the other ones too, Instagram, Twitter and so on, have become so powerful, I think is dangerous in a way, because they, as we've seen in the elections in America and in Britain, and with the Brexit thing, they can be, the advertising goes on those and fake news goes on there. People don't seem to question it very much, and so we've had decisions made partly on that sort of thing. In terms of people in the street, people at home, people on their phones, a lot of them use Facebook as their primary news source, which is probably not sensible in lots of ways, because not everything goes on Facebook. People will not post things they disagree with or they don't want, so you'll have there's echo chamber sort of things going on. But we use Facebook to promote our news stories.
And you find stories there, just like everyone else does.
I'm
thinking that Unman Police is a good example for me, that they would go to us for, have you seen this man or something, and you print it in the papers, we'd do an interview about it. Now it's all bypassed, it just goes straight to their media page. Does that annoy you a bit? They do
a little bit, and it's also, I think the police are quite foolish sometimes. They put something up, there was on this morning, and it was clearly going to go to court, but they said this man has done this thing, and you just think, which police officer did that really needs to be told something about contempt of court, about something about defamation, because it's quite dangerous. They didn't have to do weeks of training like we all have to do in terms of how the law works, in terms of what the media has to do, and the police have now joined the media game in that way, and I predict there will be trouble in the future in court cases and so on by them doing that.
Right. As I said, they've almost bypassed media. We hardly get a call these days. Right?
Well, we do get, and we do follow things up, and we ring them up and so on to actually do the full story. I mean, they will do a 3 or 4 sentence thing, which will be a nib, a news in brief in the paper. But we can follow it up and get some more things out of it, and so on. Or we'll talk to the police officers we have good relationships with and get stories from scratch too.
Anything else over the last 10 years besides you've still got the job? I mean, how long have you been here now?
Since 2008.
Wow. Congratulations. Gold clock is coming your way.
Maybe. Who knows? I think another thing that I thought has been a theme over the last 10 years is the closure of so many small facilities. Now, we're having a lot of post office closures at the moment, or changing to the counter services, that sort of stuff. You think of all the banks that have shut, the Isle of Man banks in particular, Onken shut, Laxey shut, Kirk Michael's shut, I'm sure some more shut, Ballasalla shut as well. So within small communities, and Onken's not that small a community, but the facilities on that level have shrunk, and so that sort of does have a damaging effect on local communities, and it is all down to the internet, really, because people are internet banking more, so they're not going into the branches and so on.
And it is a use it or lose it, surely. You can't keep things running forever with no customers there.
I'm not suggesting that the bank should make losses by running these things, but it is a sort of sign of how society has changed, because we are more and more online, and so it does have an effect on villages doing that, in that level.
Okay.
And otherwise, shops have also shut throughout the island too in different ways, retailers and so on. New ones have come in. But think about Ramsey's improved so much in the last 3 or 4 years, having had a lot of lost shops and sort of gone a bit drab, really. But now it has got better. So there are ways of improving things. I think Ramsey's a good example of doing that.
And what's the shape of things for you to come, in the next decade? I mean, we always say that people look more online, as you just said already. I mean, it must be a worry for the traditional print method.
Well, we also have our website, of course, and our website gets more and more popular.
But you had some story, electric cars, wasn't it? Something that was completely potty in the sense, like 250,000 hits way outside of anything. I mean, it's that, when you go like that, you go, whoa.
Well, you have an island of 85,000 people and 245,943 or whatever it was hits on that. It just doesn't make sense.
But it skews things a bit, doesn't it?
It skews things, and we've somehow found ourselves at the top of the Google search, and that's happened there. And I imagine it's been linked to other things. It's about electric car taxi in the Isle of Man. It's specifically a Manx story, that whether people have just picked up or not realised what that is.
All right, I cut you off in your prime there. Where were you going with what were you saying about the future?
Well, I mean, we have got our website, which is going strength to strength, really, in lots of hits. We are planning a new version of the website. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of delay on that, so we're really looking at that and how we do that and how we make it more appealing for advertisers in particular. We have to earn a living, we have to get our money somehow or other, so we'll be doing that. But the papers are strong, and we've got more sort of supplements, like the destination supplement. We had a thing about the maritime sector a couple of months ago, which is very popular, and so it's a question of evolving more than just staying the same.
Things like that.
Niche things really work.
And of course, you had a change of owners in the last 10 years. I presume that went through Johnson Press, wasn't it?
Johnson Press, I think.
Is that long ago?
Tyndall bought us about 3.5 years ago.
Right.
So it's been quite a while ago now, yeah.
But they've got confidence, and I mean, you've got a tight staff here. When you first came here, I think you had a lot more people, but it's changed. But everyone's got to do different things these days.
Well, we've worked very hard, and the staff here are excellent. A great team here, really good team spirit. Lots of very clever and dedicated people here. So yeah, we do a tighter job, more efficient job than maybe we would have done at some time, maybe than other organisations might. But we are determined to carry on with the newspapers, and they make money. They pay our wages.
Finally, a bit of crystal balling. Yeah, the big story that's going to come up. I'm just thinking one would be the steam packet and the new thing in Liverpool.
Well, that's one of the big stories of the decade, really. That we broke, by the way, the Isle of Man steam packet being bought by the government. So this is a continuing running story, I suspect, in some ways, because you can guarantee that constituents, voters, will complain to their MHKs about the price of the steam packet, etc., and understandably why. But if it's going to be run at arm's length, politicians shouldn't have a direct say in how things work. But I can imagine that this will become a political hot potato when they'll be asking questions in Tynwald, and it'll be very difficult to keep it at arm's length.
Just one more thing, actually. I mean, the free information tool has been quite useful for
that's
you.
That's very true, yeah.
you've caused probably a few ripples in government circles. You mean you're pushing? I mean, that's the promenade. The cracking was a great one, wasn't it? How do you feel that's working?
Largely well. We've had a few issues in terms of having to challenge them, so we have been challenging them and letting our readers know about it. Recently, over Mr. Kujine's issues, we've challenged that. So yeah, it's a really good, useful tool for us.
And do you think that there will be any pullback from it, though? I mean, do you think that... I get this feeling that they're not happy sometimes what they have to keep releasing. Well, clearly they're not happy because they don't want to release it. You're pushing them. I mean, you're going to appeal wherever I mean, this is the sort of thing that they'll go, we'll just do something with that, right?
Well, if they do that, they pay lip service to transparency. And we obviously believe in transparent and open government, and if they do as well, politicians should back us really against the establishment in government who don't want things to be released.
So when you hear, my newspapers are all part, they need the money from the government, they're all advertising. How do you feel when you hear that?
There are a lot of idiots in the world, Paul. If they don't read our papers and they think that sort of thing, then they can let them do it. I mean, the people who read our newspapers and understand our newspapers and our website will understand very well we don't fail to that pressure.